We take a look at LA Kings players that could make up the future of the team and how they're performing this season. That is next on this Christmas Day edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we are on YouTube. Merry Christmas. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Enjoy the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Coming up on today's show, with the Christmas break, I thought it would be a good time to check in on the future of the LA Kings, young players that the Kings are looking to make a contribution either now or in the near future. Also, prospects that are the future of the Kings down the road and are probably a few years away. But let's start with the immediate future, and that is young players that are currently or have been on the Kings NHL roster this season. Kings currently have 22 players active on the roster, 2 players on injured reserve, Trevor Lewis and Arthur Kaliev. Kaliev is on a conditioning assignment in the AHL, and 1 player on long-term injured reserve, Drew Doughty. 9 players on the current roster are 25 years or younger. Let's start with Quinton Byfield. The expectations on the 22-year-old are sky high, as it is hoped that he will one day take over for Anze Kopitar as the Kings' number 1 center. The number 2 overall pick in the 2020 NHL draft has played 213 career NHL games with 34 career goals and 103 career points so far. Last season, Byfield set career highs with 20 goals and 55 points. Playing on the wing, this season, he was moved back to his natural center position, and while his overall play hasn't been bad, his production from a year ago has not been there. Q with only 6 goals and 15 points through 34 games. Still, Byfield has shown glimpses of high-end skill and talent, but needs to find a more consistent finishing touch. While it's unrealistic to think Q could ever really be the next Anze Kopitar, we're talking about the greatest player in franchise history, I still believe that at the very least, he will be a solid top 6 center at the NHL level. Quinton Byfield is signed for the next 4 seasons at $6.25 million. He will be an unrestricted free agent when his contract is up. Alex Turcotte is a former number 5 overall pick that was in the 2019 draft, and he's finally getting a chance to be an NHL regular, and he's trying to make the most of it. So far, so good. While the numbers are close to Byfield, 5 goals and 13 points so far, Turcotte has only recently gotten a chance to show what he can do on the top line and has looked good while adding 2 goals and 3 points in 5 games. Unlike Byfield, this is his first real NHL action. The reality, though, with Turcotte is that the Kings are likely just happy to get anything from him at this point. At the NHL level, he unfortunately has had a lot of bad luck when it comes to injuries, including a couple of concussions that really limited his time developing and learning in the AHL. It was feared that he might never get a chance to show what he could do in the NHL, but Turcotte is producing so far this year. He's looked good, shown a lot of energy, skill, and speed, and I think should get a chance to stay on the Kings' top line for at least the immediate future. Turcotte is showing that he can be a top 6 forward at the NHL level. Obviously, he has to do it over time. It can't just be a short sample size. But the 23-year-old winger is looking good. Now, he's a bit on the smaller side, 5'11", 185, and it does remain to be seen if he can stand up to the physical challenge of a full NHL season. But he has shown toughness and resiliency in his brief time in the NHL. Alex Turcotte is signed through the next 2 seasons, making $775,000. He will still be a restricted free agent when his contract is up. How about the other Alex? Alex Laferriere, one of the biggest surprises for the LA Kings, has shown in a very brief time he can be a top 6 level forward in the NHL. The 23-year-old is a former 3rd-round pick in 2020, had a nice 2-year career at Harvard before joining the Kings after his sophomore season. Laferriere played 4 games with the Ontario Reign after his college season in 2022-23. And the expectations were that he would play at least one full season with the Reign. And then depending on how that went, maybe he'd get a look with the Kings this season. Well, of course, that's, you never know how things can change. And due to unexpected circumstances, LaFerriere got a chance, found himself in the Kings roster last season, and had a very respectable rookie year with 12 goals and 23 points in 81 games. Now, this season, he's taken it to another level so far. And it doesn't really matter where he's played in the lineup. He has been a contributor. He's been a producer. 34 games, he's got 13 goals, tied for second on the team, and 25 points, third on the team, already eclipsing his totals in both categories from his rookie season. He's got good size at 6'1", 205. Doesn't exactly excel at anything, but is solid at just about everything. Alex LaFerriere is making $875,000 this season. He'll be a restricted free agent after this season. Brandt Clarke, like Quentin Byfield, expectations are high for this offensively gifted defenseman, and it is hoped that one day he might be a replacement for Drew Doughty. In his rookie season with the Kings, technically not his rookie season, but his first full season as an NHL player, he's still learning to implement the offensive side of his game at the NHL level while still being a defensively responsible player. He excels at getting pucks on the net with a little flip that seems harmless, but always seems to be potentially dangerous for Kings opponents. He's got good skating ability, always looking to join the rush, but seems to be a bit more of a playmaker than a finisher at this point. Clarke's skills, however, make him a unique player on the LA Kings, as we've seen our fair share of stay-at-home defensive-minded defensemen over the years. It's kind of fun to see an offensive-minded defenseman for once. Started this season strong, 12 points in his first 13 games, but it's cooled off since with 7 points in 21 games. 34 games so far for Brandt Clarke. He has 3 goals and 19 points. The 6'2", 200-pound blue liner is signed through next season. He makes $683,334. Brandt Clarke will be a restricted free agent when his contract is up. Akil Thomas, I'll admit it, I didn't think the 24-year-old former second-round pick in 2018 was ever going to get a real shot at being an NHL player, but after 4 AHL seasons with the Reign, with some injury issues as well, Akil got his chance last season to make an impression, and he did. A good impression. 7 games, and he had 3 goals. Now, this is from a guy who's not necessarily known as being a scorer, but it did leave an impression, I think, on a lot of people, including the coaching staff. Akil, unfortunately, hasn't been is in the lineup as much as I would like to have seen him so far this year. But when he's gotten a chance to play, he's still a solid contributor in the bottom 6, and he can play wing or center. 15 games for the Kings this season. Thomas has a goal and 3 points. Akil Thomas isn't expected to be more than a bottom 6 forward for his NHL career, but he still can be an NHL contributor. He's proved that to me. He is signed through next season at $775,000. Samuel Helenius, 22-year-old centerman, born in Dallas, Texas, where his dad was playing in the NHL, but raised in Finland, cracked the LA Kings roster after parts of 4 seasons and 150 career games in the AHL with the Ontario Reign. Second-round pick in 2021, wasn't expected to get much of a look with the Kings this season, but due to injury, he's gotten a chance and maybe a bit ahead of schedule, has looked okay as an NHL player. He has never showed much scoring touch, not really a big offensive guy. 8 goals, 19 points in 69 games with the Reign last season. That's the most he's ever had at the junior pro level. 18 games this season for the LA Kings. He's got 2 assists, 6'6", 200 pounds. Clearly he has the size to compete at the NHL level. He'll drop the gloves when he needs to, so he does bring a physical edge that obviously is something the team likes. Helenius isn't projected to be, I don't think, more than a bottom 6 forward over his career. Samuel Helenius is signed through next season, earning $805,883,000. He'll be a restricted free agent after next season. Andre Lee, like Samuel Helenius, 24-year-old former 7th-round pick, has gotten a bit more playing time in LA than was expected. But like Helenius, his size and skating ability make him someone that can play at the NHL level. 6'5", 210 pounds. He's played 17 games with the Kings this season with 2 assists. He is not projected to be more than a bottom 6 forward in the NHL, but like Helenius, he does have some skill, and he does provide a physical presence. Andre Lee's making $775,000 and is a restricted free agent after this season. And Arthur Kaliyev, you might be surprised to be reminded that Artie is only 23 years old. It seems like he's older than Turcotte and Laferriere, but he isn't. But the former second-round pick in 2019 may seem older because he has played a lot more NHL games than Turcotte and Laferriere. 188 career NHL games for Arthur Kaliyev. He has an above-average NHL shot. He's got a scoring touch. And he's had seasons with the Kings where he scored 14 and 13 goals. Unfortunately for Artie, last season, he only had 7 goals in limited playing time, fell out of favor with head coach Todd McClellan. He was hoping for a fresh start this year with Jim Hiller as the full-time head coach, but then got hurt in training camp. Hasn't played yet so far this season. Now it just doesn't appear there's really a spot for him anywhere in the top 9. And he's a guy who needs minutes to be an asset for the Kings. Has been the subject of trade rumors since last season. We'll see what happens. Arthur Kaliyev signed through this season at $825,000. He is still a restricted free agent after this season. All right, coming up next, we'll talk about some Kings players looking to make the pros in a year or two. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Get ready to tackle the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You've got big NFL action coming up this weekend as the playoff picture continues to take shape. You also got college football playoffs going on as well. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's take a look at players in the Kings system. One of these players has had a little taste of NHL action, but most of these guys we're going to talk about next are in the AHL with the Ontario Reign and are a step away from having a chance in the NHL. Let's start with Eric Portillo. We talked about one game. He had it with the Kings this season, which we'll talk about in a second, but looked at as perhaps the Kings goalie of the near future. 24-year-old former third-round pick in 2019 by the Buffalo Sabres, is in his second pro season after 3 standout years at the University of Michigan. So far in 49 games in Ontario over this season and last season, Portillo has an overall record of 32-14-3, 2.47 goals against average, and a .914 save percentage with 2 shutouts. Portillo made his NHL debut this season and posted a win over the Ducks, where he allowed just 1 goal on 29 shots. And while Darcy Kemper is under contract for 2 more years after this season and makes $5.25 million, David Riddick is a UFA after this season. Now, if Portillo continues to play this season as he has played so far, this season 8-2, 2.37 goals against average, .910 save percentage, I expect Portillo to be the number 2 goalie for the LA Kings next season. And depending on how that goes, have a chance to be the Kings' number 1 goalie following next season. Eric Portillo is signed for 2 more years after this season, and then he'll be a restricted free agent once his contract is up. Samuel Fagemo, 24 years old, proven AHL goal scorer. He's flirted with the NHL over his 5-year pro career. He scored 27, 23, and last season 43 goals with the Ontario Reign. This season he's got 15 goals in just 24 games. Has played 21 career NHL games with the Kings and Nashville Predators, who claimed him briefly off waivers before he was reclaimed by the Kings last season. He's a little bit like Arthur Kaliyev in that he has a decent scoring shot, but he doesn't give you much else other than that. He is an option for the Kings, who you can understand, though, why Jim Hiller would probably prefer to have guys playing bottom 6 minutes who can bring a little bit more to the table, especially on the fourth line, like the aforementioned Samuel Hellenius and Andre Lee, who have the size and that physical ability. Samuel Fagemo, though, still a chance that he could help out the Kings if they need somebody due to injury. But he is an unrestricted free agent after this season, so this could be his last season in the Kings organization. Martin Kromiak is a 22-year-old Slovakian in his 3rd season in Ontario. So far, the former 5th-round pick in 2020 has been okay. 6 foot, 190 pounds. He's got 15 goals in each of his previous 2 seasons with the Reign. So far this year, 5 goals, 5 assists in 25 games. Now, numbers at the AHL level can be deceiving. The Kings, I think, are hoping to see a little bit more scoring touch, however, from Chromiak. In his only full season of junior hockey, once he came over to North America, he had 44 goals and 86 points. So he can put the puck in the net. I think he has the potential to possibly be a top 6 forward at the NHL level, but we aren't going to know that until he actually gets a shot to play in the NHL. And that's probably not going to be anytime soon. Martin Chromiak is a restricted free agent after this season. Francesco Pinelli is a 21-year-old former second-round pick for the Kings in 2021. He's in just his second pro season. Last year, he had 12 goals and 20 points in 67 games. This year in 24 games, 4 goals and 10 points. Now, he's gotten some decent looks with the Kings in the preseason, and I think he could be in the Kings' plans for the future, but he still has some developing to do. I wouldn't expect to see him get a shot at the NHL for a while. Francesco Pinelli is signed through next season and then will become a restricted free agent when his contract is up. Atu Jimson is 22-year-old, former 7th-round pick, interesting prospect for the Kings. He's got pretty good size at 6'2", 175 pounds. Only playing his first season in North America. He has 3 goals and 6 points in 14 games for the Reign this season, coming over after playing in Finland. Atu Jimson is signed through next season and then will be a restricted free agent. Caleb Lawrence is 21-year-old. The forward is also a former 7th-round pick in 2022. He's got good size at 6'6", 200 pounds, was a part of a Memorial Cup championship team in juniors last year with the London Knights. He's split time this year between the Reign and the Kings ECHL affiliate, the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. His first year as a pro, he's played 15 games total with 5 goals and 10 points. He is signed for 2 more seasons before he becomes a restricted free agent. Angus Booth is a 20-year-old defenseman in his first pro season, 4th-round pick in 2022, 6'1", 190. He's played 24 games with the Ontario Reign this year, 2 goals, 8 points. He's a +6 on the season. Angus Booth is signed for the next 2 seasons and then will be a restricted free agent. And Jakub Dvorak, 19-year-old defenseman, was the Kings' 2nd pick in the 2023 draft. The youngest player on the Ontario Reign roster right now. He's got good size at 6'5", 210 pounds. 14 games with the Reign this season. He's got 3 assists. Jakub Dvorak is signed for 2 more seasons before he becomes a restricted free agent. So those are some names to keep in mind currently playing on the Ontario Reign that we're looking to contribute possibly as LA Kings down the road a couple years from now is when you might be able to hear or see some of these guys as LA Kings. But you never know. We didn't expect Alex Laferriere to be an LA King at this point, so you never know. But some names to keep in mind as well. All right, we're going to talk now about further down the road for the LA Kings, some exciting younger prospects to definitely keep an eye out for. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Just go on the PrizePicks app and you could be a winner, and you could win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL and get a $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, so I mentioned that the players we're going to tell you about next are players that are likely more than a few seasons down the road for the LA Kings, except for the first name we're going to mention, and that is Liam Greentree. The 18-year-old first-round pick from this year's draft is playing in his 3rd and final season of junior hockey in the OHL for the Windsor Spitfires. The 26th overall pick in this year's draft has been great so far this season. 21 goals, 52 points in 32 games so far. 6'3", 215, has good size. He's got good all-around skills. He will be a pro next season. The only question is, will it be in LA or Ontario? Now, if he were in a lesser organization, let's say a team that's really looking to infuse some young talent because they are not playing well, they need talent, he could probably play at the NHL level next season. But with the Kings, obviously a playoff team, a team that is not going to have a lot of holes to fill next season, Tanner Jeannot and Trevor Lewis are the only forwards for the Kings that are unrestricted free agents after this season. So there just isn't really, I don't think, a spot for Liam Greenstreet. Now, if he's good enough to play, he's good enough to play. But I think his situation is very similar to Brandt Clarke a year ago. Brandt Clarke had the ability and the talent to play at the NHL level, but the Kings didn't feel like he was quite ready. So why not give him a chance to play in the AHL for a full season, work on his skills, play in a longer year, play against grown men, and develop, and then give him a chance to play at the NHL level. I really think that's probably the course the Kings are going to take with Liam Greenstreet. And again, he's only 18 years old. So, I mean, if you have the talent, you have the talent. I think he does, but I think he would really benefit from a full pro season. So we'll see. I don't think it's completely out of the question that he could be an LA King next season, but I think it is more likely and probably the more prudent approach to let him ripen a little bit on the vine, let him get a pro season under his belt, and then bring him along the next season. But Liam Greenstreet, a very exciting prospect for the LA Kings that will be an LA King here in the not too distant future. Maybe not the case for some of these other guys, including Carter George, although he is a very highly touted prospect as well. But goalies take a little bit more time. We mentioned the Kings are looking, I think they're looking for a bridge between what they have now and what they are going to have in Carter George. I think Eric Portillo could be that nice bridge, but we'll see. As far as Carter George, many believe the 6'1", 190-pound netminder is the next great goalie for the Kings. Now, that's a lot to put on an 18-year-old, but again, a lot of people think he's that good. Now, second-round pick in this year's draft, and unfortunately for him, he's been on a bad team in the OHL. His numbers are deceiving. So far this season, playing for the Owen Sound Attack, his record is 4-13-5 through no fault of his own. 905 save percentage on a bad team actually isn't bad. 3.49 goals against average. Now, despite the numbers, he was selected to be one of the goalies for Canada at the World Junior Championships, which gets underway on Thursday. And he's expected to be the number one goalie for Canada. So if that should tell you, if you're familiar with it, that should tell you all you need to know. The Canadian World Junior team is chock full of grade A level prospects. And if he's the number one goalie, again, that tells you all you need to know. Now, he's not expected to be NHL ready for a while, but there is real excitement that Carter George could be the Kings goalie of the future and be a solid NHL netminder. He is signed for the next 2 seasons with the Kings organization, and then he'll be a restricted free agent. If he is not the future in net, maybe Hampton Slukinski is the 6'2", 185-pounder, a very intriguing goalie prospect for the Kings. He has been dominant at every level he's played at so far. 19-year-old was a 4th-round pick of the Kings in 2023. And like Carter George, Hampton Slukinski is also at the World Junior Championships. Now, he's one of 3 goalies on the U.S. roster. Slukinski, currently a freshman at Western Michigan University. So far this season, 3-3-1 is the record, but the numbers, 1.84 goals against average and a 941 save percentage, are outstanding. I've been very intrigued by this guy. I understand why some are higher on Carter George than him, but I think this guy could be a very good goalie as well. And look, if it doesn't work out between one or the other, or if one of these guys really asserts themselves down the road, you either have 2 really good young netminders manning the net for you. Maybe it's a 1A, 1B, or maybe one of them gets used as a trade piece to improve your team in other areas. Either way, it's great to have some depth at the goaltender position for the LA Kings. Cohen Ziemer is a 20-year-old forward playing in his final season in junior hockey for the Prince George Cougars. He's having a real good start to his season, 22 goals, 34 points in 25 games so far. The 6'1", 200-pounder could end up joining the Reign at the end of this season before joining them full-time. That's Cohen Ziemer. Jack Hughes, 6 foot, 175-pound forward, was the Kings' 2nd-round pick in 2022. He's having a slow start in his 4th college season. No goals, 6 assists in 16 games at Boston University for the 21-year-old. Kenny Connors, a 6'1", 190 forward, Kings 4th-round pick in 2022. He's in his 3rd season at UMass Amherst, 17 games so far this season. The 21-year-old has 1 goal and 15 points. Matthew Mania, 6'1", 190-pound defenseman, playing in his 4th season in the OHL. 19-year-old, 3 goals, 16 points on the blue line for the Flint Firebirds so far this season. Matthew Mania, 5th-round pick of the Kings in 2023. Otto Celine is 5'11", 187 pounds defenseman, playing in his 4th season professionally over in Finland. Through 31 games this season, the 5th-round pick in 2022 has 7 goals and 18 points. The 20-year-old will be looking to make a switch to North America next season and join the Ontario Reign. Otto Celine, 5th-round pick of the Kings, again in 2022. Ryan Comney is a 5'10", 190-pound forward in his 2nd season at the University of New Hampshire. Former Kings 6th-round pick, has 8 goals and 16 points in 13 games so far this season. Jared Woolley is a 6'5", 210-pound defenseman in his 2nd year playing in the OHL for the London Knights. He was a teammate of Caleb Lawrence, and they won the Memorial Cup last year. 33 games so far this year for Jared Woolley. The Kings' 6th-round pick in 2024 has 2 goals and 12 points. Jack Sparks is a 6'8", 240-pound defenseman playing for Clarkson University, former Kings 6th-round pick in 2022. 1 goal, 2 points in 17 games this year, but he is obviously a massive human being. And finally, James Reeder, 5'10", 170-pound forward playing for the University of Denver, the former 7th-round pick in 2024, 5 goals, 10 points in 18 games as a freshman for the Pioneers. So some names to remember, some names that we'll be keeping an eye on and updating you on, certainly in the offseason, to let you know how their seasons ended up finishing up. But hopefully some names that you'll remember. And certainly as far as guys like Carter George and Hampton Slukinski, they're playing in the World Juniors. So we'll be keeping an eye on them coming up when that tournament starts on Thursday and telling you how that they did. Hopefully well. For you everydayers, those of you that listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, Thursday we're going to look at the Kings roster for this season. We're going to talk about each player individually so far to see who has and has not met expectations this season. Then, of course, on Friday, it's our weekly Kings fan feedback show, your chance to give your thoughts on the LA Kings. The email address to get in on that is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. You can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. We appreciate that. Stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We're at Locked On LA Kings, and you can even submit questions that way for the fan feedback show if you would like. I'm Eddie Garcia. Hey, depending on where you're listening and watching to this, I hope you either have or are having a great Christmas. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great Christmas. We will talk to you on Thursday. And as always, go Kings, go.